All right, good afternoon, everybody. So here we go with 8.6, creating and analyzing a budget. So you will need a source of data about income and expenses. Probably the internet is a good spot to go to. And let's take a look at what we'll do. Try these first, and then we'll walk down through the different pieces here. So the try these gives you an idea of what to expect in this section here today. And just judging from the questions, you can tell that it's going to be just simple math. So $10, take away $15, I've got negative $5. So you can put that on a calculator, or you can, okay, so negative $5, just like that. Oops, let me do that again, if you don't mind. So it's minus $5, okay? Now, we usually don't see money as being negative, but when we talk about a budget, it is possible to have negative money. So it means that you're not making as much money as you're spending. That would be negative money. All right. But usually in the real world, you either have money or you don't. But we've already seen in credit cards that you can borrow and loans. So that, in essence, is negative money. All right, the next one here, 57, take away 96 plus 23. So with a calculator, you can go ahead and do that. I'm going to add 23, and I got negative $16. Okay, that's a dollar sign there. So negative 16. Number 3, 720 plus 45. And then take away $6.99, I got positive $66. And then finally, the last one, $1,000, take away $2,000, take away $100. Okay, so I can do this with a calculator, or you may be able to do it in your head. 1,000 take away 2,000 is negative 1,000, and then you lose another 100 is negative $1,100. Okay, perfect. All right, so what is a budget? Well, a budget helps you keep track of what you spend and earn. Okay, so a budget is basically an itemized, a detailed account of your money, where it's coming in and going out. All right, and we typically work on a budget in that we determine what we're going to spend for different items. And then if you stick to your budget, then you only spend that amount that you have put aside for that one item. Okay, a budget compares expenses to income, so what you spend to what you bring in. A budget can show a surplus, which means that you have more coming in than going out, or it can show a deficit, which means that it's deficient, it's less, so that means that you have less income than your expenses. That means you've got to pay more, but you don't have enough money coming in. That's called a deficit. A budget helps you decide where you can reduce spending. So when you look at a budget and you figure out where it is that actually you're spending your money, you can then look at where it is that you can possibly spend less. A budget helps you plan and achieve a financial goal. That makes sense. If you want to save for something, then a budget will say, well, I'm going to put aside this amount for this future goal. All right, and so those are all the different aspects of what a budget can do, or what it is. All right, how can you analyze expenses? All right, so there's a couple ways that you can take a look at what you're expending. Okay, one ideal way is you keep track of it. All right, so you need to determine, in terms of expenses, what are your total expenses, what are your fixed and variable expenses, and what's your total income from all sources. So I'll figure that, or I'll explain that in 1 second. So you've got money coming in, money going out, and then when it comes to expenses, money going out, there's two different types of categories. There's fixed and there's variable. So fixed means that it doesn't change. Variable meaning that it can change or can vary. Okay, so The definition is off to the side here. A fixed expense, a cost that remains the same from month to month. So can you think of any fixed expenses? You know, you can think of, if you guys are paying for your own cell phone bill, that's usually a fixed expense in terms of if you don't have a you know, additional cost added onto your phone bill. All right, if you get other things that come on a regular basis, if you've, you know, subscribed to something, I don't know, on your phone app, if you decide to, who knows, if you've got an app on there that is a subscription, you know, if you've got a music app, right, where you're paying for it on a regular basis, that's a fixed expense, right? A variable expense, on the other hand, is a cost that changes from month to month. It varies. Okay, and a recurring expense means that it happens monthly or over and over again. All right. So circle the fixed expenses below, underline the variable expenses, check all recurring expenses below. So let's just look at this 2, 3, and 4 here. So we want to circle the fixed expenses. I'm going to go through and let's see here. What could we do? I guess we could just go through each item and determine whether it's a fixed, a variable, or a recurring, an ongoing expense. All right. Some of these things you may not know. Okay. So car payment, that is a fixed expense. So I'm going to circle that. Whoops. But you also, it is also a recurring expense. So that's a recurring. I'm going to check that. Clothing is not a fixed expense. Nobody is that I'm aware of is on a clothing plan. So it's a variable expense, and we underline that. Okay, it's not a recurring expense. Maybe if you have, no, I was going to say that if you have a job where there's a uniform you have to buy, that, you know, that's not common. Cell phone is usually a fixed expense, but it can also sometimes be a variable expense depending on if you have a cell phone plan that where you exceed the number of minutes, you know, you have a certain number and then you get charged for extra, and it is also recurring. Groceries are typically variable. We don't buy the same things every month, and we typically talk month to month. Gas, again, we don't typically buy a, you know, it depends on how much you drive your car, that determines how much gas you spend. Movies, nobody has a plan typically that I'm going to go to the movie, you know, on a set amount. Oh, I'm sorry for forgetting the recurring. So groceries do occur over and over again. Your gas is typically an expense that goes over and over again, right? You got to keep filling up your car typically because you got to keep driving typically, and you got to get to work or wherever you happen to drive. Movies is not a recurring expense. You can go a few months without going to the movies. Video games, let's see here. So I imagine that's, you know, playing new video games. That would be a variable expense. Recreation, typically recreation is a recurring expense, and it is also a fixed expense. Okay. So I'm thinking gym memberships, I guess, but maybe not. Maybe it's that, you know, you're going to pay for, you know, swimming lessons or something. Maybe that's different. In any case, gym membership is, I'm going to assume that's a recurring. There's so many variabilities of what recreation could be. Gym membership is more detailed. It is definitely it's definitely a fixed expense, and it is also recurring, right? You typically lock into a long-term contract for a gym membership. Insurance is a fixed expense. You may not know that, and it's a recurring. Gifts is a variable, and vacation is a variable. as well. All right, and it may be recurring if you go every year, but not every month. Most people don't go every month. Okay, and most people don't buy gifts every month. Okay, so I'm gonna I'll change that. I'm not going to say that's a recurring expense for you to go on vacation. Whoops. All right, all good? Reflecting, which expenses in question 4 do you think are the most important to someone starting a new job in a new location? Oh, good question. So, depending on your situation, yes, for sure, your costs will change. If you're moving to a new place with a new job, certain things it's going to be more expensive because you may not have certain things there. For example, you may not have furniture, or you may not have stuff in your cupboards that you need, so it's going to be more expensive. Your cell phone may be more expensive because you don't have, again, a landline yet, for example, if you're going to get a landline. All right, example number 1. Tiffany is a pharmacy technician in Winnipeg. She tracked her expenses and income for a month. She has started a monthly budget. Continue Tiffany's budget. All right, so we know she's a pharmacy technician. She's in Winnipeg, and here she has tracked her budget. All right, so we have her receipts on the right here, which are holding on to everything she's paid for, and that's a good idea. The other thing that people recommend, especially with smartphones these days, is you can get an app on your phone that would, keep track of your receipts and your budget. So every time you spend money, you put it on your phone and you type it in and on the phone app, and they can keep track of your budget, which is a great thing to have, because it's always good to know where is your money going and what's coming in. All right, so let's complete her monthly budget. So monthly income, annual take-home pay is $29,481.12, and we're going to calculate what it is monthly then if she makes she takes home $29,481.12. So I'm going to figure out how many months there are in a year, because that's her yearly amount. But we need it per month, so we need to figure out how many months there are in a year. There are 12 months in a year, so I'm going to divide by 12 to find out what it is she's making per month. And I get 2456.76, so $2,456.76. Okay. All right, so that's what she's got to have money coming in. And let's look at some of her fixed expenses and some of her variable expenses. So the rent, there's a blank there, but we know that she spent $950 right here, so I'm going to click that off and I'm going to put $950 in there. That means we've looked at the receipt and we've included it in our budget here. Okay, that way for all the receipts, if there's anything missing, we can fill it in if there are. Car payments. All right, so is a car payment a fixed or variable expense? It is a fixed expense, and notice the $219.37 is here, so that should be a car expense there. Okay, please write the word car in there. So we have $950 here on top. Those are zeros. All right, utilities, $86.45. Again, that's a recurring fixed expense. So utilities here, and there's a blank there, so $86.45. $86.45. And that's done. Okay, she's got a food expense of $271.42, and that is going to be a variable. Okay, it's a recurring, but it's not a fixed amount, right? What you eat in one month might not be the same as the cost of eating the next month, and most people don't have a meal plan, unless you're a student maybe. and you live in a dorm where they have a meal plan for you. But this is not Tiffany's case. Gas is $84.28. That's also variable. Clothing, $75.98. Oh, that's right there. There's a little blank there. So $75.98 goes here. And finally, the recreation, $68. Okay, so that isn't the same as your gym membership. Okay, and there's a few other things here like leisure. Obviously, there's no receipt here, but she's kept track of it. Miscellaneous, which is something that's may not fit into any of these categories. All right, and then she's got her cell phone and she's got her savings as on there as well. All right, so what we want to do now is to add up all these amounts to find the total expenses. All right, we've got all of these different expenses. We've looked at all the receipts. So now I'm going to grab a calculator. We're going to put it all in. So we have 950 plus 219.37 plus 114.7 plus 86.45 plus 62.50 plus 220 plus 271.42. So I'm going to add in, even though they're variable expenses, they're still expenses. So I'm going to keep going. Gas is 84.80. Or sorry, 84.28. Clothing 75.98. $54.39. Add on $68 for recreation, $75.88 for leisure, and $67.23 for miscellaneous. So our total expenses here is $2350.2. Okay, so her income is $2456.76. $2456.76. And we're going to take away 2350.02. And notice that her income is higher than her expenses. She is going to have more money at the end of the month, right? It's going to be, and she's going to have $105.56. Okay. So does she have a surplus, deficit, or neither? She has a surplus of $105.56, which is a pretty good thing to have, right? Better than a deficit. This month, Tiffany won $500 in a charity raffle and must pay a vet bill of $785 for her dog. How does this affect her budget? Right? So now she has an income of an extra $500, but her expense now, which is an extra expense of $785, that means that she is down. She is minus because she didn't actually have enough to pay her bill here. So it's $285, but she had $105.56 extra as a surplus. But now this is new information. This has affected her her actual status. So where she's at where is she at? She's got 105.56 as an extra amount, but this month she has gone and had to take away 285. So Tiffany has she now has a deficit with this new information. She has a deficit of 179.44. Okay, and we don't typically call a deficit a negative amount just because it's kind of like a double negative. If it's a deficit, it's understood to be negative, and we know that she has a negative amount of 179.44. Therefore, she has a deficit of 179.44. Tiffany wants to save an additional $50 per month toward an RRSP. How could she adjust her budget to do this? All right, so, and I'm going to assume that this is talking about from now on, not just this month. So if she wants to save an extra $50, then she has to look at her budget and say, all right, well, where can I save $50? And typically we go to the variable side because the fixed is fixed. They're usually not changing, and you've got into a contract of some sort. So she could save $50 by, she could save a little bit, off clothing, for example. Maybe don't drive as much, take the bike, especially now that the weather's getting better. All right, those are two things that she may do. She could, if she is going out eating instead of making food at home, she may want to do that to save some money. Just some ideas. All right, so I would say maybe drive less. So she could save gas. So drive less, take a bike, walk. She could spend less on clothing. All right. Personal care is important. I think you got to kind of take care of yourself, and recreation, the same thing. Leisure, you got to also go out and enjoy yourself. So, but if it was very important for her, then maybe she would have to look at cheaper ways to find leisure, for example, or recreation. All right, the other thing, sorry, she could also, if that's recreation including a gym membership, she could, as we are finding out in these days, you can just go take a bike ride around the block, you could run around the block, you can do things that don't involve the gym. All right, let's take a look at some of these questions here. Financial planners say save by paying yourself 10% of your salary each month. Why do you think they suggest this? All right, so try and think of a reason why financial planners, people that want you to save money and have more money, towards your retirement and later on in your life, or even just have more money available to yourself, they suggest that you pay yourself 10% of your salary each month. Why do you think this is? Okay, and whatever you come up with, just put it right there on the answer for question number 1. Question number 2, Allie wants to save for a trip to Yellowknife. The airfare is $563.08. Accommodation for 8 nights costs $1,080. He is planning to have $300 spending money. Allie would like to go on the trip in 1 year. How much does he need to save each month? All right, so you need to figure out what his cost is going to be for the whole year. For the whole trip, in 1 year's time. And then to know what he would need to save, then he would have to save it over 12 months. And therefore, you could figure out what the total cost would be, and then divide by 12 to find out what he needs to save per month in order to pay off the trip in 12 months or in 1 year's time. All right, so you're going to add the total cost, of course. The airfare is $563.08. Accommodation for 8 nights, so that's a total for, not for each night, but for 8 nights total, and then he wants to have an extra $300 spending money. Okay, so you're going to add these values together, get a total for the total cost of the trip, divide by 12. That'll get you the monthly cost. Okay, train fare is less $355. Okay, and the comma means that instead of paying $563.08 for airfare, he could pay instead $355. How much does he need to save each month? So I guess now in the new scenario, how much would he have to save? So what you can do, instead of having to recalculate, although you could put this amount now with the accommodation and his spending money, and then take that number and then divide by 12. You could do it that way. Or you can figure out what he's going to save each month, right? Find the difference between $563.08 and $355. That would be the total amount of money he'll save if he takes the train instead. Divide by 12, and that's how much he's going to save each month from what, that's how much money he will then not have to spend because he's taking the train. We can then take that away, because he doesn't have to save that, from what we've calculated in part A here per month, and then that would be the new amount. Should Ali save for this trip or charge it on his credit card? Why? So thinking back on what we learned about credit cards, you can answer that question. Question number 3. Savannah is taking courses in Calgary. She lives with her parents. Her parents pay her tuition. Her net monthly income as a waitress is $1,203.12. These charts show Savannah's monthly and annual expenses. All right, so here we go with what her monthly expenses are here, and here are her annual expenses. And then what you're asked to do is just to list down here from this list, to put down here from this list which ones are fixed expenses. In other words, they don't change month to month. Okay, so go ahead and do that. And then list her variable expenses. All right, so if you could do that, that'd be great. Question number 4, use the charts for Savannah's expenses in question 3. Okay, so for question number 4, we're going to need to use this chart here. All right. Create a monthly budget for Savannah. List the income, fixed expenses, and variable expenses. Include the monthly cost of annual expenses. Record the surplus or deficit. Circle to show whether the amount is a surplus or a deficit. So this is very similar to what we did with the question way up here where we had this chart and we filled it in. We're going to do the same thing here. All right. So the one thing that we didn't do way up here, because these were monthly income and monthly expenses, and what we have to do here is we have to turn our annual expenses here per year into monthly expenses. So we do that by dividing by 12 because there's 12 months in a year. So to find the monthly expense for books and supplies, divide by 12. To find the monthly car insurance, divide by 12. All right. You will then have all of our monthly expenses for the month. You can add that all in. Right here is the total, you've got monthly expenses and then her monthly expenses here. You have to determine which ones are fixed and which ones are variables, all right? And then her monthly income is going to be here. That's how much she makes per month, 1203.12. That number is going to go here, all right? So let's do that with you. 1203.12. Okay, that's her monthly income. You're told that information here. All right, her total fixed expenses, well, you're going to have to come up with a list here and put down which ones are fixed and which ones are variable. I'll give you and I would say, you could just write it even on the chart here. For example, the room and board, that's a fixed expense, right? Okay. Cell phone is a very interesting one because it could be fixed and it's not very clear whether or not it is or is not. So you can decide for yourself whether your own phone bill is usually a fixed amount or do you usually go over and have to pay extra, which in that case then it's variable. Okay, So you go through the rest of the list here, and then you're going to put down the total fixed expenses here. So you're going to add it all up. Once you've done that, you're going to put the total fixed here, total variable, and then you're going to add these two columns together to get the total expenses. And then you're going to take that away from whatever you get here for the total expenses. You're going to take that away from 120312. If you end up with a negative number, then you have a deficit. If you end up with a positive number, you have a surplus. 4B, in the second year, Savannah will pay her tuition of $18.50. She also has a car repair that she has charged on her credit card. The monthly payment for 1 year is $78.93. How will her monthly budget be in surplus? Will her monthly budget be in surplus or deficit? So again, now we have some new information, and you're going to add into this your information here. All right. The other thing you're going to need to know is that her tuition, this amount is per year, all right? So we don't pay for tuition typically monthly. So that's an amount that's her tuition for the year, and I guess you would divide that by 12, although that seems kind of low too. Savannah will pay her tuition. I'm going to assume that's a lot of money, right? I'm going to assume it can't. Well, it doesn't make any sense that would be per month. So it's not clear, but this is going to be $18.50 per year. You need to figure out what that is. What's per month? By dividing by 12. All right, so we then find out a monthly cost for her tuition, and then that's her monthly cost for her car. Add the two together and see whether or not now her new budget will be in surplus or deficit. What budget changes could Savannah make to reduce expenses? So again, you look at her expenses and come up with an idea that maybe, how can she save some money? And usually we go to the variable expenses for that. 5, collect income and expense data for your situation in a few years from now. Create your own budget. Okay, so in this case here, you're going to imagine yourself in a couple of years. Okay, you may or may not be at home. You may or may not be working. You may or may not be at school. And depending on your situation, try and come up with, what expenses you may have, and what expenses, or so what sort of income you may have. So you may want to look into that. You could Google, budget expenses, fixed expenses, variable expenses, and you'll get a list, and then you could figure out, in a couple of years, I think I might have to pay this or I might have to pay that. And then you could also look at possible salaries if you're working. If you're going to school, you may, be having just a summer job, so you have to adjust your income that way. Suppose your income for Part A decreased by $200 per month. What changes might you make for your budget? And again, like the question up here, look at your variable expenses to see how you could reduce your expenses. All right, hopefully that's okay. It is a lot here. I'm going to let you try your best at it, and then we'll touch base on Tuesday, and depending on how you guys are doing, if we need to spend more time on this, we will. If we don't, then we'll move on. All right, guys. Hope you have a great weekend. Please wish your mom a very happy Mother's Day on Sunday. Please get out this weekend. It's supposed to be really, really nice weather, so hopefully you will, and you'll enjoy the weekend. Yeah. All right, take care, and I'll talk to you guys soon. Bye-bye now.